Hey guys, Jen with Astro T. So today we are talking about the Mars retrograde that's going to be going on for about 7 months time. So hang on, because if it's already bothering you, it's gonna last a while. So we currently are in the pre-shadow period that started on October 5th at 17 degrees of Cancer. So show you on the handy dandy board here. So we had Mars around here about halfway through Cancer, about 17 degrees, and now it's moved ahead a little bit. So Mars does go retrograde about every 2 years. The last time was in 2022 when it was in the sign of Gemini. And when that was happening, it was going through my 6th house, and during the pre-shadow period, 2 of my cats were actually killed, and if you watch my videos, you'll know the story because I've talked about it many times. And the 6th house is your 6th house of pets. So pretty much one of the worst days of my life. Not a huge fan of Mars because of it. The retro cycle then brought me the 2 little monsters that you are probably going to see in the background, Bean and Hickey, and it brought me them. And they were found in a dumpster a couple days later. They were about a couple weeks later. They were a couple days old. So those 6th house pet themes was really strong in my chart, and it was just astrology pretty much spelled out. Anyway, so this retrograde cycle is in Leo. It does go up into Leo, but it's mostly going to be taking place here in Cancer. So you want to look back to see what themes this might bring for you. So the last time that it was retrograde in Cancer was in 2007, and in Leo it was about 2010. So to see how this will affect you or the themes that it might bring for you, think back to what late themes in your life, what was kind of going on that was in about the late 2007, the later months of 2007, I think it was March, or not March, that's early, November. So, can you remember what was happening back then? If it really was something that stood out, then, so think about that time frame in your life. Always great to start, journaling. Journaling is great. You can look back, remember the years, remember your age maybe, what could have been going on, different aspects in your life that it could have been affecting. And the different kind of themes, because it's going to be a little bit different for everybody, because it's going to fall in different houses, so different areas of your life. Like for me, back in 2007, Cancer is in my 7th house, so it's themes about relationships, partnerships, that kind of thing, maybe a marriage. And so 2007, and then and then about before that it was the 92, 93. So again, that was in my 7th house, and yes, those both times had a lot of relationship themes going on. Was a positive one and then a negative one. So I'm due for a positive one this time. But as always, you want to take into account the aspects that it's going to be making to the planets in your own chart, the luminaries, the angles. Now it happened in my 7th house, which is at an angle, and it's the angle of your descendant. So if you have it falling on angles in the 1st, 4th, 7th, or 10th house, you're going to feel it a little bit more. It's going to be a little more impactful maybe. So, again, hopefully, if it's in, say, your 5th house, it could be children. If it's in your 4th house, that's a major one. That could be your family, your heritage, maybe parents even, your home. 10th house career, of course, and then your 1st house would be just yourself. So this this Mars retrograde cycle will oppose Pluto 3 times. So the first will be on November 3rd. So that already happened. That was at 29 degrees Cancer, when it was still in the Cancer Capricorn axis. So because we still have Pluto at the very, end of Capricorn is going to change tomorrow. Actually, I think today's the 18th, so tomorrow. But this is what adds a lot of flair. Sorry, my cat is getting into all my stuff. So Mars will station retrograde then on December 6th, and that's going to be at 6 degrees Leo. So that's how I can explain how it's only, so we have about 13 degrees that it is in Cancer twice, and then it's only going into the early degrees up to 6 degrees of Leo. So that's why we know it's going to be, of course, a longer period in Cancer than it is in Leo. So it's, a lot more degrees it's got to go through. The second opposition with Pluto will be on January 3rd. So that's 3 months later than the first one. But this time it will be in the Leo-Aquarius axis because both signs will have changed by then. So how will that work out? We'll get into all that. Mars will then station direct on February 24th. So that's going to be back when it's at 17 degrees of Cancer, when it starts its pre-shadow period. And then the third opposition with Pluto will be on April 25th when it's still in the Leo-Aquarius axis during its post-retrograde period. So that's when it's in its direct motion. The post-shadow ends on May 2nd, and that is at 6 degrees Leo, so that's 7 months. It's a long time for, Mars to be really just antagonizing those degrees between 17 of Cancer and 6 of Leo. So if you have things there, expect to feel it. And I can feel it. It's just, everything's very aggravating almost to me. And I do have it passing, going into my 7th house and then going back over my Saturn. So it's a lot of fun. Again, not Mars's biggest fan. So let's break this all down. So, we'll see how things might get triggered for you. So first, we'll talk about Mars. So what is Mars all about? If you guys are kind of new and, you're not really up, you want to learn a little bit more, Mars, again, it's done me dirty. Mars is a malefic planet. That means is a negative, and it can cause some irritability, I guess, in your chart. And it is a challenging planet, especially if you have a day chart. And that is for when your sun is over the horizon. So you'll see here if we have, if we have Aries in the first house, the horizon would be here. So anything, above that or above the 6th house. So that would be above the horizon. So that's how you would know if you have a day chart. So the sun would be at the top part of the chart. So there is where Mars will be a little more aggravating and a lot less helpful. In a night chart, it might not be as bad. It might be a little bit like of a push, maybe a little bit of aggravation, but not quite as much as if you have a day chart. It's a planet of action. So Mars is all about action, reaction. It's the fire and the drive behind it, your motivation. It's that masculine warrior energy, that protective, that physical activity, playing in sports and being competitive, maybe fighting, it's that just adrenaline. That's what keeps you just going. It is, can be, on its worst, it can be confrontational, it can be antagonistic, it can be reckless or overly aggressive. So it can bring a little bit of negativity, but it can also provide that drive. But that drive could be, something that you're going to do no matter what people think of it. Mars rules Aries, and traditionally it rules Scorpio. So these signs are when Mars is in its domicile. So it's also exalted in Capricorn. And why is it exalted in Capricorn? That means it's like raised up. That means it's kind of at the spa there. And why is it exalted in Capricorn? Think of the Capricorn sign. They are out for success, and they are very driven. It's a very driven sign. So it makes a lot of sense that that's where it would have its exaltation. So the opposites of those are where it would have its debility. So its debility would be in Libra, because that's opposite Aries, and it would be in Taurus, which is opposite Scorpio, which are both Venus ruled signs. So it's, you know, that yin and yang going on right there. So then its fall would then be the opposite, which would be in the sign of Cancer. So we are starting out with this is Mars is going to be in its retrograde, post-retrograde, pre-retrograde cycle in Cancer, where it's in its fall. And these are places where the moon really shines. You think of Taurus, that's where the moon is exalted, and that's where it has its, you know, its debility. And then in Cancer, where the moon is the ruler, and that's where it has its fall or its exile. So it's uncomfortable in those signs that are compassionate, fair, nurturing, because it's more, and those are signs that kind of are looking out for the other person and less about themselves, which Mars is a very kind of a self-driven planet. The pre-shadow began, whoop, there goes my other cat. It seems like I have 100 here, but I only have 2. They're just out of control. So the pre-shadow began when Mars was at its fall at 17 degrees Cancer again. So that means, I'm going to move him. So he's out of his element there. So he's just not happy, he's not comfortable. And we are going to feel probably the same way, especially if this is in one of your angles or in an area of your life that you might be struggling with because of this, because you're really forced to not take the action that you want to take. You're kind of hindered in a way, kind of held back. You need to take others into consideration, and you might be frustrated because, you know, those kind of things might be holding you back to just get things done. For instance, if this is in your like what's happening in my town right here, there's a restaurant that's been struggling to open. So they probably have, you know, maybe in their 10th house, they have it, you know, and that's that fight, that's that hindering them from opening because they're, you know, arguing with the codes of the town and things like that. So it's that, like, something's holding you back, you can't move forward, and you're kind of being stifled a little bit. You also have the tendency to be kind of an emotional basket case. You could have emotions just going super high, you could have them going super low, you could fly off the handle really easily, just feel annoyed. And I'm telling you today, with it in my 6th house, I could feel it in your everyday work and routines. It was just one of those days. You know, of course, nothing bad happened at work, but I could just feel it, just wanted to be anywhere but there. Even though overall it was a fine day, nothing, you know, bad or stressful happened. So it's just those inner tensions that you're going to be working with, and depending on what area of your life it's in. Again, you know, you could be overly passionate almost. You could be a little bit smothering. You could be, you know, that smoldering jealous. You know, that kind of, you know, what's going on there, that kind of Scorpio kind of, like, you know, or it's just that, oh, I just want this over with. I'm over this and I'm done. Just feel like I can't deal with it anymore. I don't have the energy. And that's going to be a lot of how you feel too. Like, because in Cancer's like a more kind of homebody kind of sign. And Mars is not really that homebody. Mars wants to get out there and do things, and so you could just feel like, you know, I just don't have the motivation. So you might be feeling like that. Another way you might be feeling, especially if this is going through your, say, your 4th house or your 5th house, even in your 11th with your friends, you could have that kind of mama bear syndrome. That could be very extreme. You could feel that, like, super overprotective, like I have to protect my friends, I have to protect my children, I have to protect my husband. whatever. You're just going to have that mama bear feeling. And in your sixth house, then you're protecting your pets, just that actual like feeling of just, I have to protect this, because that's what Mars does. Mars is that masculine kind of protective, I want to take care of you, like not in that nurturing moon kind of mothering kind of way, but in the like, no, I'm gonna fight for you. So we've actually kind of seen this play out on a grander scale in the United States, where passions were just running high right before the election. So on the 3rd, Mars ingressed into Leo. So and that will be until the retrograde. We'll bring them back into Cancer around January 7th, and that's the day after the election gets certified. So we know the date, that would be January 6th, so we all remember that date. So hopefully this will be without a lot of stress, but there is going to be some, that fighting back and forth, that, struggling to be on top, that struggling to be the leader, because Mars and Leo will pretty much be taking us through the holiday season. So for Thanksgiving, we'll want to be front and center, because Mars in Leo is that like, look at me, and I am the leader and I want to be the leader. And we saw that, of course, happening during election on the 5th. Like, okay, that's obvious. People are fighting to be the leader. They're trying to be the leader of the pack. They want to be the one in charge, the head honcho. So that is Mars and Leo, kind of very generalized. Just wanting to be the person on top. So for Thanksgiving, when we're all going through Thanksgiving, we're all going to want to be front and center. We're all going to want to be the center of attention. Like, our story's the best, and this is, I cook the best, and this is the best recipe, or this is, everyone's going to want to be the best and brightest, and, we're going to be having it here, so hopefully, I have everything ready, and I got to get that motivation up for Thanksgiving. So, but when we move into Christmas and New Year's, not so much. And that is because Mars will be retrograding. So yes, it will still be in Leo, but once it starts going retrograde, you feel a little more, shrinking violet, and not so that big, tall sunflower. So you feel a little more like inward, and not quite so aggressive, not quite so outward, which is nice for the holidays. So maybe, if there are some aggressions going on during Thanksgiving, maybe they'll get diffused a little bit during the Christmas, New Year's season. So Mars in Leo is a very different vibe than Mars in Cancer, obviously. If they're two completely different signs, it's going from a water sign to a fire sign. So very different. So instead of that mama bear, you'll be like Goldilocks, just taking whatever you want. You're just at someone else's house, and I'm just gonna eat this porridge because it's the best, and I'm gonna sleep in this bed because that's what I want to do. That is Mars and Leo. I'm the leader, I'm making the rules, and that's what I want. So you could feel a little bit like that. Like, I want to make the rules, and I don't want to, listen to what everybody else wants, and I kind of want to do my thing, and I want to be the leader, and I want to be that one that is, I don't want to be a follower. I want to be the one that's starting things and initiating things. So you might have that feel a lot when Mars is in Leo. And, of course, when it goes retrograde, it's going to wane a little bit. But because Mars direct in Leo is also, that showman. So you could feel like you're being a show-off. So, of course, during the holiday time, you're going to be showing off, like what I said, your food, your decorations. I have already been decorating my house. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I do have some stuff up. So I have it all decorated and ready to go for when we have company. So that's just, again, me showing off, or trying to show off, because that's, kind of what you do when your Mars is in Leo. And everyone wants to be in the spotlight. Passions will change from overly emotional to egotistical. So that's overly emotional in Cancer goes to egotistical, just kind of more me, and I'm just like that big head syndrome it could be. But also that getting things done. Mars in opposition with Pluto really accentuates the need to be the leader of the pack. So that's what I'm really saying, that need to stand out, that need to be the leader, that need to be in charge is really going to kind of start poking at you once that opposition becomes stronger. But with everyone feeling this way, because we're all going through this, it will be more for some people depending on where it is in your chart, but everyone will be feeling it in some kind of way. So there's going to be conflict, there's going to be competition, conflicts for, governing parties that are going on, so I would expect that things have calmed down since the election, but I would expect that things might ramp up a little bit before the holiday season. I think in the next couple weeks things are going to get a little more intense, especially with that Mars opposite Pluto just really just playing a role there. I think you could have issues with your bosses or superiors. If you're already having issues at work, you could, start a fight. So that's it, I quit, I'm out. You could be at that breaking point. So, or just your superiors in general, or even, being the alpha person in the house and trying to make the household rules, even your parents. If you're younger, maybe you're living with your parents, maybe you're having those conflicts there, where your parents just are, telling you what to do, you don't want to listen, say I'm over it. But again, once it goes back into Cancer, that's going to calm down a little bit. So, again, we experienced the first Mars opposition was in Cancer Capricorn. We experienced that, so we can see it playing out on a larger scale, very visibly with the people here of the United States. Very polar opposite, so we had that struggle back and forth. Passionate about their rights, oppressed to those vying for power because they're afraid who might take their rights away. And both sides were seeing the same thing. And it was apparent in the days leading to, prior to, and after Election Day. So it's that building of, before it happens, before the opposition was at its peak, we had that building fear, that building and what's going to happen, that tension, that just everyone was scared, like what's going to happen either side. And then oppose, when people seem to be just kind of losing their minds at times. Everyone's hysterical, and then after the election, people are crying on social media, threatening violence to people. So it's very, very intense energy, so that just happened to be around election time when all this was happening. The second, when both Mars and Pluto ingress into the next signs, Leo and Aquarius, they're in that Leo-Aquarius axis. So that's going to have a different feel to it. Mars and Leo, again, what can we do to stand out? Pluto and Aquarius is that life-changing quest for a better future. So, because Aquarius wants to be that helper, wants to, make the world a better place, is that, the savior kind of vibe. So that Mars in Leo, how can I save the world? And I think, when we see, as they're getting into the presidency and that, we're going to see somebody kind of starting to stand out. I want to change the world in this way, and we see this with the different picks that are already being made. So anyway, not getting too much into politics here, but Mars has an agenda, and it's omnipotent in Leo, so it's just, ready, and I just has that, like, never say die kind of attitude. So it's just really that, like, I want and I'm going to have. So, it'll do whatever is needed to accomplish this agenda. Whatever agenda we push, we will likely get pushed back because of the opposition. So it's the same in our everyday lives. We all have agendas in our heads somehow. We all know what we want. We could be pushing that, but someone could be pushing back on whatever that is. Again, get your chart up, because just look at where it falls in your chart, what house it's in, and you can just see where that opposition is going to be. But once the retrograde Mars will be more passive aggressive, because it will be going back into Cancer, and then it will also be just in retrograde. So when it's in retrograde, it's going to be less intense, not as strong, like I said, a little more laid back, that shrinking violet, and not just that, like, maybe prickly cactus that's standing up there, kind of just shrinking back a little bit. But at this time, we need to take the time to really reflect and reset to more realistic goals. Like, think logically, because some of the things that we might have been vying for might not have been logical. Some of the things that we've been thinking about, maybe been taught, have not been logical. So you want to use that Mars energy to maybe get back, to take out in a positive way. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling that just, want to break out of the box, maybe go play a sport that you used to play in high school. Maybe if you used to be a runner and you haven't done it in a while, go back to that, lift some weights, just anything to kind of get out that adrenaline, maybe just wall box, or who knows, whatever makes you feel that maybe you haven't done it in a while because you've been feeling kind of lazy. Mars and Cancer, now's the time to really get out and start just getting out that aggression in a positive manner. Maybe even if it's happening, maybe in your first house, it could not be about aggression. It could be just, oh, I'm just so bored, with my hair, my looks, maybe it's time to go out and just get that big 80s hair back, big Leo hair. So do something that is going to make you stand out. So something like that would, maybe get a perm. I had pretty big hair back in the 80s, so bring it back. Hey, you never know. So maybe we'll just see, on a good note, restructuring with the current wars. We're already seeing that the current administration has opened up, I guess, the ability for Ukraine to shoot long-range missiles into Moscow. So you're seeing these renegotiations, like re-allowing stuff. Okay, well, you weren't allowed to do this before, but now I'm allowing you to do this. So you're allowed to have this aggression, that Mars, that going in, that pretty much the bomb going in. So you can see that really spelled out in that. So they got rid of what happened before. They said they couldn't do it, but now they're saying that they can do it. But it could also be on a more positive level where they might get into renegotiations, maybe renegotiate peace, because when it's back in Cancer, it's a little bit of thinking about the other side and not just thinking about yourself and what you want. So that could be, renegotiating that peace treaty, and that would be really nice. So try to, revisualize with this new, path going forward of ourselves and for the collective as a whole, because we are in the midst of a huge change, so we want to roll with it. So if the full moon in Taurus brought you problems in your relationships or in your finances, now is the time to rethink, reaffirm, or maybe even reinvest in a new, more confident future. So look at that, because Taurus is about money. It's also about relationships too. So if that full moon brought you some issues there, this is the time to reevaluate what you had going on. So by January 7th, we will be re-entered into, Mars will be re-entered into Cancer. So back into taking others' needs into consideration. So not just you, but the needs of those that we love and that we care for. So that is that Cancer vibe. So how can we better serve one another as a collective? So it doesn't have to just be with the ones you love. It can just be with mankind in general. People that are hurting, maybe reach out to them a little bit. Be that aggressor, not a positive aggression, into like, let me help you. Let me hear what you have to say. So maybe I can help. Again, use that Mars energy for positive. And, again, once it's in Aquarius, how can we make the world a better place? That's when that Pluto goes in there. How are we going to change this? We've got a lot coming up next year. So this, leading us through the beginning of the year is going to be uncomfortable, and we still have those, even, something as simple as, maybe even redecorating, or helping a family member with, say, snow cleanup. It's going to be the winter, or Cancer is in kind of rules the fourth house of home and family. Maybe if you've had problems with someone in your family, maybe it's a time to go in and kind of make things better, mend a broken relationship. Mars retro may, again, that's subdued, so you maybe won't be so antagonistic. So let's march on when Mars goes direct. So that's on February 24th, and that is taking with us what we have gained during the retrograde cycle. So the final opposition may be the most intense because of everything that's going to be going on around it. Of course, we'll do a lot more videos as we get closer to that date. And that is, because I think that this Mars retrograde cycle is really getting us prepared for what is coming next year. Lots of big changes coming next year. Going to be a rough one. 2026 does not look like it's going to be super fun. Or 2025, not 2026. 2026 looks a lot better. Anyway, so the last opposition is going to be on April 26th, right after our second biggie, Neptune, enters Aries. So that's a big one. So we're pretty much preparing us for the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's going to be happening in Aries at that first degree. So a lot going on in Aries with that Martian theme, because in Aries ruled by Mars. So Mars isn't just going to go away once the post-shadow period's over. So lots to look forward to, guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we're going to go through all of it together. We're going to break it all down together. It's going to be a lot of fun. Better to know what's going to go on, because then you can prepare for it, right? So hit that notification bell. Let me know what y'all think in the comments, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.